Ever wonder if there's like a secret ingredient to intelligence? Something more than just, memorizing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's a question that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
This paper, Intelligence at the Edge of Chaos, it really makes you stop and think, how do we even define intelligence, really?
totally. And that's what we're diving deep into today. Some really cool new AI research. And trust me, this isn't your usual like bigger data equals smarter AI kind of thing.
Right.
This is about something much more fundamental,
Yeah.
like this really unexpected connection between complexity and intelligence.
And what's really cool about this research is it doesn't start by trying to perfectly copy the human brain.
Mm.
It takes a totally different approach. It
Hmm.
focuses on these things called elementary cellular automata, or ECAs for short.
Okay, gotta admit, elementary cellular automata sounds a little intimidating at first.
It's simpler than it sounds. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine a line of dominoes. Each one can be either standing up or knocked over right. Now picture those dominoes changing from one state to the other, like falling over or staying upright, based on these really simple rules about their neighbors. So if one domino falls over, the one next to it might fall too. Or maybe it stays standing, depending on the rule.
Okay, so it's kind of like a line of dominoes making these really complex chain reactions.
Exactly.
But instead of real dominoes, we're talking about digital ones that are like flipping on or off.
Exactly. You got it. And here's the thing. Even though the rules for each individual domino or cell are super simple, the patterns they create when they all interact can get mind-blowingly complex. Some ECAs form these repeating structures, while others seem almost totally random. And it all comes from those initial simple rules.
It's wild, like just a few lines of code can create this whole universe of possibilities.
That's a great way to put it.
So how does AI fit into all of this?
So the researchers wanted to see if an AI could learn to figure out the patterns created by these ECAs.
Okay.
They basically trained separate AI brains using things called LLMs, which are like the tech behind chatbots like ChatGPT.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They trained these LLMs on different sets of ECA rules.
So they had these AIs watch a digital version of those dominoes falling in all these crazy ways,
Yeah,
and their job was to predict what would happen next.
you got it.
Wow.
And what they found was really surprising. The AIs that learned from the most complex ECAs,
Wow.
the ones with those super intricate and almost impossible to predict patterns, they didn't just get good at predicting the dominoes.
Wait, so they could do even more than just understand those patterns.
Yeah, much
So they could do even more than just understand those patterns.
Yeah, much more. These AIs actually got better at solving totally different kinds of tasks, too. Things that needed a whole different way of thinking. It was like grappling with all that complexity in the ECAs somehow unlocked some next-level intelligence.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. What kind of different tasks are we talking about here? Like, give me some examples.
Sure. So imagine testing these AIs with visual puzzles. The kind where you got to use logic to figure out the pattern or find the missing piece.
Right, like those brain teasers?
Exactly. And the AIs that trained on the most complex ECAs, they consistently did better than all the others at solving these puzzles.
Wow, so it's like learning to predict those super chaotic domino patterns somehow made them better at like cracking codes in these visual puzzles.
It's really wild, right? And it goes even further than that. They even tested the AIs against a chess AI.
Whoa, chess. That's a whole other level.
Right. It takes serious strategy. But guess what? Those AIs that trained on the complex ECAs, they were consistently outmaneuvering the competition.
No way. It's like they stumbled onto a whole new level of thinking. It reminds me of those nature documentaries where you see like a chimpanzee figuring out how to use a tool in a way no one expected, or a crow solving some crazy multi-step puzzle. It's not just instinct, it's like genuine problem solving.
It really is. And the researchers found evidence suggesting these AIs weren't just memorizing patterns. They were developing a deeper understanding of the rules themselves, a kind of flexible intelligence that could adapt to new situations.
So they weren't just playing by the rules, they were learning how to bend them.
Kind of, like they'd come up with these really complex solutions to problems, even when there was a much simpler answer staring them right in the face.
So they were thinking outside the box, going above and beyond. That's amazing.
Right. It really makes us reconsider how we think about intelligence. What if instead of focusing on just recreating the complexity of the human brain, we focused on these more fundamental principles of complexity and emergence?
Yeah, like maybe it's not just about the sheer number of neurons or connections, but how those connections actually form and adapt in response to complexity.
Exactly. And that brings us to this really exciting concept called transfer learning, which is making huge waves in the AI world right now.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but refresh my memory.
Sure. So transfer learning is basically the idea that training an AI on one specific task can actually make it better at other completely different tasks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like that makes sense. It's kind of like how learning to play a musical instrument might make you a better learner overall, even if
Yeah.
you don't become like a concert pianist.
Perfect analogy. And what's really interesting is this research suggests that the complexity of that initial task, that first thing you train the AI on, is super important.
So it's got to be something that really challenges them.
Exactly. Training an AI on something super simple, it might not lead to much transfer, but training it on something like these complex ECAs, something that forces it to find patterns in all that chaos, that seems to create a much more adaptable and generally intelligent AI.
So it's not just about learning a thing. It's about learning how to learn in a way that you can apply to anything.
You got it. And this brings up maybe the most mind-blowing implication of this whole thing. Could this tell something about how we learn best as humans?
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, could this explain why learning a new language or mastering a really challenging skill just makes us feel sharper overall, like
Yeah,
even in areas that have nothing to do with what we were learning?
it's a really compelling thought, right? Our brains evolved to deal with incredible complexity. We're constantly bombarded with information, making decisions, adapting to new situations. Maybe, just maybe, that very act of navigating complexity, of finding patterns in the chaos, is a huge part of what makes us intelligent in the first place.
So instead of always looking for like the easy path, maybe we should be actively searching for those edge of chaos experiences.
Yeah, like maybe our brains don't just enjoy novelty. Maybe they actually need a certain amount of complexity to really function at their best.
It's like our brains are begging us, give me a puzzle, give me a challenge. Don't let things get too simple and predictable around here.
Right. And this research gives us a whole new way of understanding what's going on in our heads when we take on those challenges. It's not just about learning facts. It's about building those adaptable skills, those transferable skills that we can use in all sorts of situations.
Makes you wonder what other seemingly simple systems out there might be hiding this kind of unexpected complexity, this potential for unlocking intelligence.
It's a humbling thought for sure. We tend to think intelligence equals like super complicated systems.
Hmm.
But what if the most profound insights are tucked away in those places where simplicity and chaos collide?
This whole conversation has me thinking about my own learning in a whole new light. It's not just about checking things off a list or memorizing information. It's about chasing those aha moments, those moments where you really have to grapple with an idea and forge new connections.
Exactly. And those moments, they don't always show up when you expect them to. Sometimes you got to lean into the chaos a little bit, get outside that comfort zone and be open to whatever comes your way.
Well, folks, there you have it. We've taken a deep dive into this amazing world of elementary cellular automata, artificial intelligence, and the surprising link between complexity and intelligence.
And along the way, we've definitely challenged some of those assumptions about how we learn and where true intelligence really comes from.
Absolutely. So next time you're feeling stuck, consider embracing a little chaos. Pick up a new skill dive into a topic you know nothing about, or maybe even try deciphering some of those complex patterns you've been avoiding. You never know what hidden depths of intelligence you might uncover within yourself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.